Okay, today's video, we're going to talk about Google Ads and how you physically get a bigger ad versus a smaller ad on Google Ad, through Google Ads and Google Search specifically. When advertising through Google Ads to have an ad show up at the top of Google Search. Now, there are a few different key factors that affect this that I'm going to go through. Some of which you can affect, some of them that you cannot. So I'll be completely honest with you up front that you're not going to be able to, at the end of the video, wave a magic wand and right away have a big monster ad. It's bigger than your competitions or whatnot, or as big as your leading competitions that you may be a little envious of right now. But overall, I do guarantee you will have a bigger ad by following my instructions, overall long term, or after the first few months of implementing a few key things that anybody can do to make their ad bigger, and as a result get more share of voice of your market. Given most of the time with Google Search, it's always profitable. Making more money just comes down to getting your click-through rate on your ads higher, and that a lot of times can just be by making your ad physically bigger. So it's not a novelty thing. It's not it's not about ego. Oh, my competition has a bigger ad. The bigger the ad, the more the clicks. It's just like if you were, if you were old enough to go back and remember the Yellow Page days, the bigger the ad in Yellow Pages, the more the clicks. This is no different. So it's worth the time to put in to try to get you the biggest ad possible, and so that Google wants to show your ad in the biggest way possible for you, because it's helping their visitors, helping them, and helping you. When you help their visitors, which is your presumed customers, Google makes and will help you. And then obviously that helps Google because people want to click on ads in the future because they got a good experience from Google. So either everybody wins as it comes to what you're doing with Google Ads and your decisions as an advertiser, or nobody wins. And that's how Google set the system up. So that said, I'll get directly into the content. So a lot of people ask me, Corey, how is it my competitors have a bigger ad than me on Google? Because I run a PPC agency, which we have about 40 clients here that we manage PPC campaigns for at any given time. Most of it's on Google Search. We have the most experience there, even though we do Facebook, Amazon, all these other ad platforms as well. And they will hit me up wondering, they'll send me a screenshot, here, hey, why is it my competitor has this big ad and I don't? And half of that I think comes down to jealousy or envy. Or they'll come and just say, how do I get my ad to show up with all the links on it so my ad shows up like this? Or they'll send an example from a different company that they've seen on Google, wondering how they get their ad to show up so it's big for them as well. Because obviously sometimes on Google, if here's the Google search box, you'll see an ad, right? And the normal headline and description will be there. It says ad, or it actually says sponsored now. So sponsored next to the ad, and then there'll be what they used to call site links. I guess they still call them site links. But there'll be 6 site links. And so instead of the ad physically being, this high, it'll be this high. It'll be literally triple the size. I'm going to talk about how you specifically get that done. Again, there's no magic formula that you're going to just be able to just do and instantly you have this. But there's some things that will make it possible, at least for some of the keywords that you want to show up for, and therefore getting some extra click-through rate from your market and the ads that you have that should be profitable already. Or certainly to be able to, this will also make your ads more profitable, because higher click-through rates by having a bigger ad directly translates into more profit, not just from more clicks, but having a higher quality score and then therefore reduce cost per click for the same clicks. So if you want to be able to see all these other ad assets, i.e. and these site links underneath your ad that make it just absolutely massive, there's a few things that you got to do. Ultimately, there's other ad assets, as they call them, ad extensions, or sorry, they call them ad extensions now. They call them site, or it's, sorry, I keep getting confused here. I hate when Google, by the way, changes the way that they name stuff. And they do this all the time. And then I just keep thinking it's the old way. I keep referring to it the old way. And sometimes they'll change it multiple times. I can't keep track of how to talk about some of these concepts on this channel. Anyway, ad assets is what they used to call the ad extensions. And there's multiple types of ad assets: site links, callouts. There's image ad assets and so forth that can then be right near your ads to make them physically bigger and add extra information to the ad. Naturally, normally you want all of those as you could get, because it'll or at least give you a possibility of making your ad bigger with all that extra information on it, because the bigger the ad, the bigger the click-through rate. There is some exceptions, by the way. If you put a bunch of junk content on your ad assets and it makes the ad not so clear and concise and is confusing, it can actually hurt your click-through rate. So you can't just make your ad bigger and then have the language on there being shitty, which is why you want to do this the way that I'm telling you here. But normally, if you do it the right way, to where the quality of the ad assets are the same quality as the original, the headline or description, you'll get a result of higher click-through rate and lower cost per click from doing that. So normally you want to do all the ad assets, add all the ad assets you can, and with that, hopefully, if you do things right, Google will show many of them underneath your ad, not just one or two, but multiple. So anyway, in order to do that so that you get the biggest ad possible and therefore make the most money from your ads as possible, reality, though, is Google gets to decide if and how many of these other ad assets, as Google calls them now, formerly called ad extensions, that go along with your ad to make it bigger. So, and their ad algorithm decides if your ad assets that you give Google to show along with your ads actually show up or not, or which ones show. Google's ad system, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's run off an algorithm. It's just like a social media algorithm, like YouTube. When you start out a YouTube channel, by the way, if you didn't know anything about that, it draws parallels with Google ads in that you start out a YouTube channel, it's hard to get traction with it because YouTube's algorithm doesn't understand the type of people who like the type of content that you do. And as people start watching, they'll give you just a trickle of traffic at first. And as people start watching, 1 or 2% of the visitors they give you really, really liked it. And then they analyze those people, and they store every data point of the users that go to Google into a database somewhere, so they can look at millions of data points for each person, and they look at the 1 or 2% of the people that they showed your video to that really liked it, and the millions of data points that they have to figure out what are these people that make them different, that liked it, and try to find more people that liked it. And then with that, they see if they got the same result, and if they did, they continue. If not, usually they show you 100, 1 or 2% work. They try to find you another 100 that looks like the 1 or 2%, and then another 1 or 2% of that works, and then it keeps growing and on it goes, to the point where getting from 100,000 subscribers to 1 million subscribers is actually not difficult, but getting to the first 10,000 subscribers is very hard, because the algorithm assumes, with all the content on YouTube at any given time, that most content is shit. So they're not going to test it out very fast, and even if it is good, their algorithm's going to have to figure it out slowly and painfully for you. These Google ads work the same basic exact way as the algorithm that I just described to you. So they're figuring out, do your ad assets that you have added with your ad help their users find what they want better, so that they get a good experience, so that they want to click on ads in the future? And with that, they'll help you by having that show up on your ad from now on. If they test it and it works to get a higher click-through rate, more people click on your ad, and then as a result get a good experience as well. They'll start wanting to show your ad assets every time to every user for those type of people that look like the people that had a good experience with your ad before when they showed the ad assets with your ads. That's a mouthful, but that's basically what it is. So, therefore, that's why there's no guarantee that just because you give Google the ad assets, they're not going to always show. You got to give the ad serving algorithm information that can actually improve the experience for the user, i.e. have a high click-through rate or higher than you had before, and then match that with high conversion rates on your page so you're not baiting and switching people. And if you do that, then they're going to reward you with showing your ad assets as a part of your ad in the future. So if you want to have your ad be as big as possible, you're going to have Google's algorithm test your ad assets, be patient. Eventually, if they're good, you're going to start showing them with your ad all the time moving forward after that. So no matter how good of ad assets you give them, which you should give them as many as you can, like I said before, it's going to be several months before you really cash in on the work you did to put through quality ad assets for your ad to make your ad physically as big as possible. So, and basically what it comes down to for the most part, just to keep it simple, is the click-through rate. Google has your click-through rate on your ads before. You add the ad assets. Does the ad assets give your ad a higher click-through rate than before, which it should because the ad's naturally bigger, but does it give it enough click-through rate to justify taking up more space on the search results? Because there's only so much space for so many ads, and Google wants to see if I add the ad assets on your ad, does it overall increase the number of people clicking through the ads as a whole? Because all they want is somebody to click on at least one of their ads, because obviously they make money that way. As long as what they click on gives the user still a good experience so they don't not want to click on ads in the future. So you add your assets. Does it increase your click-through rate potentially double? You know, given that they know that it should increase it somewhat just by being bigger, but does it increase it even more than that? And they have benchmarks because obviously they have all your competitors' data. They know when they show their ad assets on their ads, what kind of an increase in CTR it gives people, the increase of users searching for those keywords, clicking through the ads. And when they show your ad assets next to your ads to take up that extra space instead of your competitors, is your ad with your ad assets added on going to get an even higher amount of people clicking on the ads as a whole than when they use that extra space to have ad assets show up on your competitors' ads? So with that, right away you could say, if you're one of these guys or gals who want their ad to be bigger and they're jealous of their competitors, they want that action for themselves, you got to be able to get more for Google and for the users by having those ad assets showed on your ads versus the competitors' ads, given there's only so much space on Google for the ads to show, so to say, like hypothetically, or they only want to basically show all the ad assets for some of the ads where they are going to get the most click-through on the ads as a whole, as I mentioned before. So, but you could take away the ad assets, literally speaking, from one competitor to have them start showing on your ad, because if the ad assets when showing on your ad gets users to click on ads as a whole more than before when they had the ad assets showing on your competitor's ad. And that comes from just having better ad assets. So for the most part, it's all up to you based upon the quality of the ad assets that you have, whether or not your ad's going to be big or small. Does it increase the click-through rate on your ad? Not just a significant amount, but beyond the average of what an ad click-through rate gets when having extra ad assets attached to it. So, not all of it though, still, there's a caveat here. Not all of what I just said is the only factor that determines if your ad assets will show up next to your ad. You're going to get a few or more, because still Google is going to test on their own some other stuff that has nothing to do with what I just said. Because there's a second factor going on, which is Google is going to constantly test different configurations of the ads that are show ads without the ad ad assets. Some show all the ads with the ad extensions. Show the ads with some ad extensions on some ads, and any combination thereof. So they're ultimately trying to figure out, going back to what I was saying before, what configuration of ads, because there's on top of whether they trying to decide if ad assets should show or not on an ad, there's usually, this is something else a lot of people don't know, usually there's 10 ads cycling in and out. Say there's 4 ads here on Google, there's 10 people cycling out of those ad spots. So they're trying to figure out who should show, who's going to get the best results in terms of the click-through rate on the ad units. And then on top of that, within the 4 people that they do show, of the 10 that they're cycling in and out and testing that, to see who should show up at all, they're testing different variations of the ads. Should the top ad get 3 ad extensions? Because that normally works better when the first ad always has 3. Or are they going to get more click-through rate on the ad units if the second ad has 3 and the first one doesn't have 3? So anyway, there's some stuff where they're not just looking at whether or not your ad assets perform, but like what's the look of the entire Google search result that's going to kind of attract the user to the ad units as a whole. So they are going to do some testing that doesn't strictly have to do with, can you give Google good ad assets that increase your click-through rate a significant amount beyond what a typical ad with ad assets have on it. But for the most part, you don't worry about that anyway because there's nothing you can do about it. But for the most part, if you have good enough ad assets and your rest of your ad's good, you're going to get a bigger ad. So you don't have to really necessarily worry about those secondary factors that determine if your ad has ad assets on it or not. Because basically, bottom line, if your ad has a high enough click-through rate, they're going to show the ad assets, basically, period. They may not show every single one, but they'll show a lot. Or they'll show like one, and it'll have, it'll take up a lot of space, which also is obviously good. So, but in summary, it all just comes down to the click-through rate of your ad. Does it get a really above average click-through rate? The ad assets are going to show. If it doesn't, the ad assets are not going to potentially show. Or, like I said before, your ad may not even show at all, or less, because another ad's taking place of it, given that they know if they show somebody else's ad, they get a higher click-through rate on the ad units. So, anyway, that's the basic fundamentals about how and why ads are bigger than others sometimes in Google search results itself. Now, there's a couple other things to mention here. Google will cycle your ad assets and pick which performs the best to raise the ad CTR, if any. So as you give Google your ad assets, they don't very rarely do they show all your ad assets. You give them all the ad assets, like I mentioned you should do to get the most results out of your Google ads. They're going to take the ad assets you give them and test, should they show this one or this one or this one, or should it be they show a combination of these two or these three. They're going to split test all that and figure out as a whole with the ads that you're using or ad that you're using for certain keywords, which configuration of the ad assets that you gave them are going to increase the click-through rate for that ad for users who search for that keyword more than anything else. And so they're going to split test that, and then actually the amount of ad assets that they show next to your ad or that they show any at all comes down to, yes, the click-through rate of your ad, but which combinations thereof of the ad assets, because they generally don't show them all. And they don't show them all because they know that if they did that for every ad, that's not going to get as much click-through rate on the ads as if they only show some and only sometimes. Otherwise, they would show all of them all of the time. So your goal is to give them as much ammo as possible, the best ad assets, and as many of them you can give them in terms of the different types, having at least one image ad asset, one site link asset, and so forth. And letting the algorithm figure out what's, through the split testing of the ad assets and different configurations and use this one with this one and so forth. They'll find the best click-through rate possible from all the ad assets you give them. And with that, therefore, you'll have the biggest ad possible because they'll figure out where what configuration of the ad assets is going to get you the highest click-through rate, and given that they want to just show the guy or gal who has the highest click-through rate, bottom line. Or, like I said, secondarily, what gets users to click through any ad as a whole, given that certain search results with certain look will have an effect on whether or not people click on the ads at all, and that being a secondary factor. That's the one thing to mention here. Now, second to that, generally, you usually get a massive level of site links. So going back to what I was talking about before, where you typically will have your ad headline and description, and then like 6 site links that basically make the ad 3 times as big as what it was before, where you've seen that. That'll typically happen when there's low competition in your space and you get a high CTR in your ad. So if you see these really humongous ads, that's generally the scenarios where it happens, where you might be the only person advertising on a keyword. And on that ad, you're getting a 8% click-through rate. So in that case, there's no reason why Google, to make more money, wouldn't make your ad as big as possible. In the situations where there's a lot of competition, through their testing, they have found that making one ad really, really big and eliminating other choices for the user that they can see by default without scrolling actually gets them less click-through rate on the ads as a whole, or at least on one ad. Therefore, that they don't make the ad any bigger than what you normally see on most searches. So for you to hope that your ad is just humongous across the board, generally it's not going to happen where it's just gigantic unless there's low competition and you also get a high click-through rate. That said, you can make your ad almost twice as big just by giving them as many ad assets as you can and giving them quality ones that are actually going to really help out Google get you a higher click-through rate, and find a higher click-through rate than your ad had before, and beyond what a typical person is able to get, like I said before, in terms of ad assets on their ad added on, in terms of the increase in click-through rate they get with their ad assets, you having a higher click-through rate by adding your ad assets, because your ad assets are actually better than theirs, so to say, side by side. So warranting taking up more space on the search results. I mean, bottom line though, if even in a competitive space, if your ad got 5 times as much click-through rate as anybody else's, if it worked to show your ad and make it so big that only 2 or 3 ads show without scrolling, and ultimately that's what makes them the most money, because that's going to get the most click-through rate on the ads, that's what they're going to do. Some cases that certainly can be a possibility. For the most part though, they're finding what's going to get users to click through the most is showing not just a few ads that are huge, but like some ads with the ones that perform better with extra ad assets that make them almost twice as big, but not 3 times as big like you sometimes see, or 4 times as big as you sometimes see. So essentially, to get in other words, just to get the really big ads, you a lot of times have to be in the less competitive markets, or specifically down to the keyword level where there's not a lot of other ads showing already, and you're already doing well, so they just give you as much as they can at that point with the ad assets, which is why it's important to have your ad assets uploaded as many as you can get, because in certain situations they'll give you a massive ad if you just gave them all the ad assets that you can give them, and that they are quality ones that normally add an extra high level of value to the ad in terms of what the user wants to see and click on. So, long story short here, you add as many ad assets as you can. Really, really think through the ad assets. Think as much about the ad assets as you do in terms of writing that ad headline and description. And if you don't spend a lot of time on that, realistically you should, because that's literally about 40% of the equation as to how much money you're going to make from your ads, is how relevant that ad is to the user, and your click-through rates thereof. Give them all that information, and let the algorithm do its thing and get the results from it. Get your increase in click-through rate, more market share, lower cost per click. That said, another last thing to mention here to get and squeeze out the most profit you can by having the biggest ad you can, by having the best ad assets you can, don't just do one set of ad assets for everything. Particularly for you guys who do lots of different unique services or unique product types. You want to have ad extensions that are unique for each product type, so that, because it's just going to perform so much better, 2-3 times better than having one set of ad assets for everything in your account. Because you can then, for instance, if you have a clothing brand, to give you an example here, you can write down to the product, and we did this in the women's apparel space. If for a black dress, we could say, the sizes that black dress comes in, and then the price of that black dress specifically. And for the image extension, the black dress itself as pictured on the site, so that when you see the ad, you get all information about that black dress that's being promoted on the other side of that ad that helps people know before they click what you're going to get by clicking, which is your goal with, actually, if you want to boil it down to one thing, with the ad assets, i.e. how can I explain to the user what's you're going to get by clicking on this ad, and use the extra ad assets to do so, because that'll always get higher click-through rates. So it'll obviously, nobody likes doing this because it takes a huge amount of time to write unique ad assets for every product, which generally speaking, the best results would be writing unique ad assets for every ad group itself, which if you do things my way, I'm going to do one keyword in every ad group, which means you're going to write unique ad assets for every keyword. You may think that's a pain in the ass and not do it, but if you do it, you're always basically going to get more results, because your ad, more than half of the click-through rate that you're going to get is dependent on how relevant that ad is to what the user wants at that particular time of searching, which is why we always use only one keyword per ad group, so that that ad can be laser targeted to that user's needs and what they're searching for at that given time. If they're looking for foundation repair in Dallas, we want the ad to say foundation repair in Dallas for the person who types that exact keyword in, because that click-through rate we're going to get from the ad by regurgitating basically back to the user what they searched for, is going to at least double the click-through rate on that ad than having like foundation services in the Dallas area. And just with that being slightly different like that, it will literally cut your click-through rate in half. We know this because we do this on every single campaign we run, and we've ran hundreds of campaigns, so we know this is the most sure thing there is as it comes to running Google search ads. And so ultimately, whereas you'll have pretty good results writing really, really well thought through asset groups for your whole account, eventually your goal should be to write unique ad extensions for every ad group to squeeze out every little bit of last bit of value out of what you're doing, so to say. And naturally, if you do this, by the way, if you're expecting to work right away better than what you have, anytime you make a change with Google Ads, you're going to have to go down before you go up, because the algorithm's not going to know how to handle what you have until they learn how to handle it. And that's kind of just the part of PPC. You make a change, there's always a drawback to making a change due to how the algorithms react. And that's why you want to make as little changes as possible, and not just have a dipshit making changes for the sake of making changes and trying to guess what works. You want somebody as knowledgeable as possible to make as little changes as possible. And when you make a change, that negative results that you get just as a result of making the change is always, you get compensated for that in the upside. You may not always know how to get results with the changes you make, but a smart person is going to be able to know 75% of the time or greater what's going to basically work better, or at least we'll just say 50% to be conservative. And so that little bit of bad results, you always are going to make up for it and then some very easily, versus you make 10 changes to figure out one thing that works. That's not what you want. You want to hire someone different to help you if that's the case, or get somebody to help you, because every single change you make is going to throw your results off, and that results before the algorithm recovers is all just dead. That's money that That's all money that just dies. And profit, you're just not going to get back. It's a cost of making a change, and there's no way to avoid it. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off. So, but anyway, that said, for most of you guys, you can get away with getting almost all of the results that you would get with your ad assets by just having one set of ad assets for your whole company, given a lot of you guys are in small micro niches. Because the money, in online marketing is coming from finding a good niche. And to give you an example, we have suicide cleanup companies that we have several of that we manage campaigns for. Like if you blow your head off and leave a mess on, in the room that you blew your head off in. This is the company comes in, cleans it up like it never happened, that kind of thing. And they also do like hoarding cleanup for people that have had that happen. With that said, we don't write unique ad assets for every single keyword in that space, at least from the standpoint for the people that are searching for suicide cleanup. So in other words, we don't do a unique ad asset for the keyword suicide cleanup versus suicide cleanup companies versus homicide cleanup companies, which is obviously slightly different. It is different from suicide. Homicide, suicide's different, but the difference that you're going to get in results writing ad assets that are unique for that, and get clever and like say, instead of saying, we help clean up, for a loved one, we help, clean up for, a murder or whatever that happened, it's going to be negligible. It will be there, but for the most part, it's about rank. You always got to rank stack your time. What are you going to spend your time on? And so there's a lot of things you can always do with PPC to make more money. Basically, never run out of ideas. But like, what is going to be the next lowest hanging fruit thing that you can do to push the envelope? And with, if you watch this channel, there's so many ideas that you'll have by just watching this channel, because I tell you the stuff that works and doesn't work. As it comes to writing unique ad extensions or ad assets, as they call them now, that should be kind of low on your priority list until you've kind of already done everything else. You've gotten 98% of the other stuff done. Then you can write unique ad assets, given that this isn't something that's going to be done quickly. If you're doing things like I mentioned, where you write unique ads for every keyword, you have 500 different ad assets to make. That's going to take you a while. So if it was easy, I would suggest doing it right away. But if you eventually want to get every dime you can, and respectively, you might be able to get an extra 10 to 20% click-through rate when you write unique ad assets for every keyword like that, which that is an extra 10% more profit that your campaign that's already making money could make, or 20% even. But for the most part, there's usually things in terms of the time put in that you could do that'll earn you more from that than that, such as making custom headlines that match the user's keyword, which will usually get you a 50% increase in conversion rate, not a 10 or 20%. Granted, the custom ad assets is going to get you a higher click-through rate, and you're going to earn by having physically more clicks, but also a lower cost per click. It's still not going to be of that size. And that's something that people normally skip over too. Or, if you're doing better conversion tracking, so if you're generating leads, instead of just putting into your account whether or not a phone call or a contact form fill happened by means of your campaign, take the sales revenue you got from all leads from your campaign and plug it back into your account, and then optimize from that revenue level, ROI level data, which will get you like 3 times as much results as you would get long term, having that extra data for the algorithm to use to optimize your account. So these are just general ideas. And there's a lot of other stuff that's going to be more productive than spending 40 hours writing ad extensions for a 10 to 20% increase in CTR, but it's there. That said, I'll wrap it up this video up with that. Hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions about anything I covered, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. If you like the video and want to help me out here, I'd appreciate it if you like the video. Spend a lot of time on these videos to put it together, to put these videos together to share what is working. We have a PPC agency here where we manage several dozen PPC campaigns at a given time, of which I'm the strategist on all the accounts, and I give you the working strategies, for you to be able to use on yourself, for yourself. And for that, you'd appreciate it if you would, all we ask is a like, and also consider subscribing, as we have a lot more ideas to share. Anything that's working, I make videos for, and the stuff that doesn't work, and that's commonly people are making mistakes on and should avoid, I also give it to you on this channel. So it's actually the best information you're going to find on YouTube about making money with PPC. In that, it's coming from a real person doing it, but also, more importantly, it gives you actionable advice on how to make money. Most of these channels, they tell you about how to set up a campaign. That's not telling you how to make money like this channel is. So if you want to get serious about making money, you watch this channel and you execute the stuff on this channel. If you like this channel as well, you'll also like the blog that I have, that I write on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. Just want to mention that as well. You might want to check that out if you like the channel. We have a brand new program at our PPC agency where we're offering turnkey PPC campaigns. In that, if you're looking for results in your market, you can contact us if we've worked in your market before and there's no conflict of interest. We're in a different area than you're in terms of our client, and you being in a different geographic market, therefore you wouldn't cross paths. Instead of just offering PPC management services, you can take our templates that work for that market and just use those. Campaign templates, landing page templates, and know what results you could get from those templates before you even used them, and to pay a one-time fee to get it. So this is just a new thing that we've done, because we know a lot of people can't afford, at least at the beginning, our services, and one way to jumpstart what you have with a relatively lower amount of money needed to be invested up front to get really great results. And for that matter, why do all the work for yourself, even with the great information I'm sharing on this channel with you, when you could just take what work already in that market? And so there's only one way to find out if we've operated in your market and have that kind of thing, which would, obviously you could contact us and we'll tell you what results we've got in that market and what, you should be able to get using those same, templates in your own market. If you want to start up a new business, by the way, instead of just randomly picking a niche, use one of our campaign templates and do like what some of our own clients will do, which they'll just outsource all the work to a local partner and have a passive income business going, literally speaking, which that's a fantastic opportunity for you entrepreneurs out there to make some money. So if you're interested in that as well, let me know. I'll let you know what markets we have campaigns in. But with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was educational for you. Hope you go out and do it, by the way, as well. And with that, I'll wrap it up and hope to see you on my next video where we have another great strategy for you there. See you later.